the change you want to see in the world. Known and respected by many, Victor Lionel Campbell, the unofficial mayor of Mayaro, was a true son of the soil, born and raised in the quiet beachfront village of Mayaro in 1922.
Well, Victor Campbell would have been the son of an estate overseer in Mayaro, Duncan Campbell. His mother, Annie Virginia Rodney, came into Mayaro with her mother to live in the early 1900s, 1905, somewhere in that vicinity. He would have been the eldest son out of that union, the first of 8, 4 boys and 4 girls.
Campbell's life as a youth in Mayaro was a closely knit one, based on the belief that it takes a village to raise a child. It was this philosophy and the kindred spirit that would guide his later life as a politician.
Everybody's joy was the joy of the village. They worked together, they collaborated. You had what was called the Gayat system, right? And it took the whole village, as they used to say long ago, to bring up a child.
He left Mayaro briefly in his teens, as was the Campbell family tradition, to complete his education in Port of Spain, but returned in 1943 at the age of 21 to assume the role of father figure for his siblings and provider for his mother with the death of his father. As a father to his own children, Campbell was an involved, integral force in their lives, who challenged them to achieve and embrace life.
He was a man that I was very proud of, so it was with great pride that I would tell people that I'm a Campbell and I will always be a Campbell. So it was really an honor to be his daughter. Daddy was, how should I put it, very big in stature. So he was always somebody you had to look up to, even though you might have been of height, you know, and so he was always like a giant to us. And he wasn't a small man, he had some size, so he was big and powerful. But he was also so gentle. He was like a bear, a big teddy bear. And, you know, always approachable. You can talk to him about anything. You can, you know, he will discuss anything with you. But at the end of the day, he was your father. He was the father, you know. And even though he didn't live with us, he was always the father. So things like education was not a compromise. There was no negotiating with that. We all needed to go to school and do our best. But he was also very strict, in a strange way, with a lot of gentleness with it. I remember once I went to his office and he had all these pencils in this container, and I said, "Daddy, can I have 2 pencils?" And I took up 2 and I'm walking out of the office. And he said, "Where are you going with that?" I said, "I'm taking 2 pencils." He said, No, that is the government's one. Put it back, put it back.
His foray into politics began when he fought on an independent slate for the Nariva Mayaro seat, but was initially unsuccessful.
Mr. Campbell, the MP for Mayaro, when he fought the first election as an individual, he lost. Then he joined the PNM and he won. And I was working with him with the business and also the election. I run every election he fought and won. We never lost any.
When the newly formed People's National Movement contested the elections for the first time in 1956, Campbell again fought for the Mayaro seat, was successful in winning the only rural seat for the PNM, and thus launched his formal career in the political arena.
When he entered politics as a very young member of parliamentarian, if not the youngest at the time, he first started off as being a parliamentary secretary and then a minister in the office of the Prime Minister. Eventually, he emerged as the Minister of Works, having acted in the absence of Larry Constantine, the then Minister of Works, in the 60s. And after that, pretty much his entire career was spent in the Ministry of Works, with a short stint for about 2 years at the Ministry of National Security in the mid-70s, before the 76 election. In terms of his being a representative in Mayaro, I don't think that there has been anybody that has surpassed him in terms of his presence.
What I remember most about Victor is the fact that had he not
won that seat, the PNM would not have been provided with the opportunity to form the government in 1956. The party had already captured the three main population centers, Forest Spring, San Fernando, and Arima. The urban centers, we unfortunately were not doing as well as we expected in central, the deep south. So we were almost totally dependent on the Mayaro seat to obtain the majority, which we, in fact we did. History could have repeated itself were it not for Victor Campbell successfully contesting the Mayaro seat on behalf of the PNM in 1956. It was the seat that in fact made the difference. That made the difference in terms of Williams and the PNM demands to form the first party government in the history of Trinidad. So in fact, Victor Campbell played a tremendous role as the successful PNM candidate in Mayaro in assisting the government, the PNM, to form the first party government in the history of Trinidad and Tobago.
Campbell's career would be one fraught with minor controversies and disputes, but one that would never suffer from a lack of support from the Mayaro and the surrounding communities. His first disappointment occurred shortly after the landmark election that brought the PNM to power. He was one of the youngest candidates and, despite his success, was not given a ministerial portfolio.
When the ministerial positions were announced by the Prime Minister, apparently there was some dissatisfaction by party members and supporters in the Mayaro constituency, which to some extent was supported by Campbell himself. And they led a couple of delegations to the then Chief Minister and political leader, lobbying for Campbell to become a minister. As a consequence of that friction, what appeared to be an internal party conflict, Campbell did not take up his position as Parliamentary Secretary for probably 4 or 5 months.
Despite this minor setback, Campbell eventually went on to be given the portfolio of Minister of Works, serving his people as well as the people of the neighboring communities and earning the nickname of the Mayor of Mayaro.
Making big speeches was not his favorite. But he saw the needs of the people, he looked into the needs of the people, and was able to get quite a lot of amenities for the people.
When he came down here, one of the first jobs he did, he paved the road from Mayaro Street into Matlot. He built the bridge. See, we have a bridge in Otway now. He built one on the Guayguari Road. Victor Campbell, a man with money, and he was a big fella, and he was a very genuine fella. So you find when he talked to people, people hear him and things like that. He'd go into Toku, the same thing. He'd go into Grand River, the same thing. Matlot, the same thing. Guayguari, the same thing. Because I would always be with him. Yes, set a good standard.
During his last term in politics, Campbell's genuine love for and dedication to the people continued to flourish and be reciprocated. But his relationship with the party leader and the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Eric Williams, faltered irreparably.
Sometime in 1974-75, I recalled this unfortunate and, to me, insensitive statement coming out the mouth of our highly respected and beloved political leader, publicly expressing that 5 of his former ministers were millstones. He described them as traditional millstones, and he became very dissatisfied. Those of us who represented at the General Council level the constituencies to which he referred, namely Mayaro, represented by Victor Campbell, Toko Manzanilla, Lionel Robinson, Sawa, Carlton Gomes, St. Joseph Sham Mohammed, and my own constituency represented by the late Brensley Barrow. So the 5 alleged traditional millstones were all returned, not only as candidates but as successful candidates, including Victor Campbell.
So there was a bit of a anticlimax to the end of his career where he felt very much hurt given the level of work that he would have done on behalf of the government and the party, to find that at the tail end, this is how he went out.
Not to be discouraged, Campbell was able to put a positive spin on his new situation while continuing in his responsibility to his constituents.
One day after school, he told me asked me if I wanted to go to Parliament with him. I said, sure, and who wouldn't want to go to Parliament? And we went, and I sat in the gallery, and he went to his seat, and I saw him sitting in the back bench. And afterwards, we were walking back to his office. I said, but Daddy, why are you sitting in the back? Why are you not in front with everybody else? And he looked at me and said, listen to me, child, that is the most comfortable seat in the House of Representatives right now. And he chuckled a little bit, and I said, but doesn't it mean something? He said, all it means is that I am myself, and I don't follow anybody's rules and regulations, but I'm here to serve the people. And he was just very cool about it.
Victor Campbell died on the 24th of November, 1997, having positively and permanently influenced the lives of his children, family, friends, and peers in countless ways.
When he passed on, our lives didn't stop. We were so independently brought up because of what he taught us and what our mother also taught us, that even when things don't fit, all the pieces are not there, you can still stand on your own. And I think that was one of the greatest lessons we shared among ourselves when he passed, that, in spite of him not being there to fall back on to say, well, Daddy, I need a loan or something like that. When he passed on, we continued to live our lives just as if he was there.
Well, my recollection of him as a representative is one where he was always accessible, and I suppose even more to the constituents than to his own family. We'd roll the windows down on entering Ottawa Village, and when we asked his children, why did you take off the air conditioning? He said, no, I need to have the windows down so that if somebody were to clap or shout out my name, I can hear them and stop and treat with them. And this was the kind of person he was as a representative. He always said that, a representative in a rural constituency must be of a certain kind of, have a certain kind of personality in terms of being approachable, in terms of being able to speak with anyone at any point in time, and of course, always giving the assurance to the person concerned that he is always looking out for their best interests, and they can rest assured that he would be looking after the particular complaint or matter that they raised with him.
Victor was a very humble, simple, typical country boy. As a matter of fact, as I recall, Victor traveled every Friday after Parliament, whatever our Parliament was completed. Invariably, he traveled down to Mayaro for his weekends with his people.
But he was a beloved fella in Mayaro, in Guayguari, in Sangre Grande, in Rio Claro.
He was always for his people. Mayaro moved from a place of bush and insects to a beautiful town, and I think it's mainly because of what my father did for Mayaro. And I can see him now walking down Mafeking Village on the pavement along where our grandparents lived, and his house and his sister's house, in his three-quarter Bermuda shorts, and he loved to wear shirt jacks, sometimes to the point where they were almost treading, I love this old shirt, and so on. But he was always there for the people, and I would like people to remember him like that, a man who served his people and served the country.